This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Susie Guerin.
Record setter. One stock today set an all-time record for the highest price ever. We'll tell you which one it is and whether it's still a buy.
Pennies from heaven. J.C. Penney gave investors a big surprise late today, and shares soared. Can the gains stick?
And the golden years. Many retiring boomers want to have fun, and all their spending is having a big impact on the travel industry. The final part of our series, Aging in America, tonight on Nightly Business Report for Thursday, August 14th.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The markets end the day just modestly higher, but at their highs of the day. But it was a record-setting day of another kind. That's because one stock has gone where no other stock has ever been before. It is a company you know, run by an investor who's become a household name. It is Berkshire Hathaway. And one share of Mr. Buffett's Class A stock became the first ever to cross the $200,000 barrier today, and it closed at an eye-popping $202,850, up $3,241 today alone. Next highest price stock is the transportation company Seaboard. It goes for around $3,000. Today's gains give Berkshire the fifth highest market value of any publicly traded company. Bigger than Wells Fargo, bigger than Johnson & Johnson, and a whole lot more. It means that one share of Berkshire could buy you a 6-bedroom, 4-bath home in Nebraska, in Omaha, the company's home base, or 4 years of tuition at an average private school. How about a ticket aboard Virgin Galactic's commercial passenger spaceship when it finally takes off? Or trade that one share for a brand new 2015 Bentley Continental GT with just enough left over to fill up the gas tank. Let's just say it's probably not a car Buffett would catch himself in anytime. So why does one share cost so much? Basically because Buffett says he likes it that way, attracting long-term investors, not traders.
So does it make sense to buy Berkshire stock or take profits now? With us now, David Rolfe. He's Chief Investment Officer at Wedgwood Partners, where Berkshire is one of its top holdings. David, nice to have you with us. You know, looking at the performance of Berkshire Hathaway A shares this year, they're up something like 13%. That's much more than the S&P or the Dow. So as an investor, should you take your profits now and, you know, just let it go at that?
I don't think so. I think there's still some room for the stock to run for the rest of the year.
How much better could it get?
I'm not expecting a repeat of the first half, but I still think there's at least another 6, 7, 8% left in the stock through the end of the year.
David, I'm going to ask you an odd question. I think but for the presence of Warren Buffett at the helm of Berkshire Hathaway, if it had been any other CEO, the investment bankers would have long ago convinced that CEO that that company needs to be broken up. The parts don't fit together. Should Berkshire be broken up? And do you think it will be after Buffett retires?
I don't think so. And I think that's one of the most underappreciated aspects of this conglomerate is that the average or good business gets better under this conglomerate. Buffett has a unique source of cheap capital in the insurance segment that helps him grow and acquire companies. The only division I think that could be spun out in the years ahead is the energy division, which has been renamed Berkshire Energy. But even this is an oddball collection, if you will. But it makes sense, and let's let the master continue to paint.
Well, you know, you say that it's a unique company, and it's unique also in the sense that, I mean, just listen to this. I mean, Class A shares, $200,000 a share. Most companies like to keep their share price up at $1,000 or less, and that's why we have all these stock splits. Buffett doesn't believe in stock splits. He doesn't believe in dividends. Do you think there's going to be a day where investors or, you know, somebody's going to force them into doing this?
I think the dividend question is far, far in the future. I think well after Buffett and Munger have left the scene, and they still have plenty of opportunity to reinvest in the railroad business, particularly the energy business. He'll put the cash to work. There's no need for a dividend.
Do you own the A shares or the B shares or a little of both? And would you buy either or both at $202,000 a share?
We own the B shares, and it's our largest holding at Wedgwood Partners, and we still think it's the best bargain we can find as we've entered the 6th year of a bull market.
Best bargain. That's really something. Okay, thanks a lot, David. Thanks for coming on the program. David Rolfe of Wedgwood Partners.
Now, as for the rest of Wall Street, stocks ended higher despite a sharp spike in first-time jobless claims last week and a mixed bag of earnings before the opening bell. But soothing words from Russia's Vladimir Putin about ending the bloodshed in Ukraine seem to give investors a boost. The major averages closed at the highs of the day. As I just mentioned, the Dow up 61, NASDAQ 19 points higher, S&P added 8, and the S&P and NASDAQ now on track for their biggest weekly gains since June. And as stocks gained, bond yields fell, with the yield on the 10-year bond hitting a 14-month low just above 2.40%.
Some encouraging earnings from Penney, the struggling retailer, appears to be staging a solid comeback with shoppers and investors. After the market closed, Penney says it lost money in the second quarter, 75 cents a share, but that was much less than the 93 cents that was forecast. Revenues rose more than expected, up 5% from a year ago on a boost in same-store sales. Investors bought up shares on word that the retailer said it expects current quarter sales to increase in the middle single digits. In after-hours trading, JCP shares popped as much as 10% on the news and then pulled back.
Also reporting after the bell, the upscale department store chain Nordstrom. And more good news there, with Nordstrom taking in 95 cents a share, excluding certain items, a 2 cents a share beat. Revenue was right in line with the forecast. Same-store sales up 3.3%. Shares initially higher in late trading after the bell, but then the stock reversed course, as you see on that graphic.
But some disappointing earnings news from the biggest retailer of them all, Walmart. It said U.S. sales were flat, and it cut its earnings guidance for the year, blaming weak consumer spending and higher costs. But as Courtney Reagan tells us, the company is focusing on some new initiatives to help jumpstart sluggish sales and profits.
It could have been worse. Walmart posts another quarter of sluggish U.S. sales, although a bit better than anticipated. The retailer is still struggling to get shoppers into stores, posting the 7th straight quarter of falling U.S. traffic. Profit was in line with expectations for the quarter, but the world's largest retailer lowered its full-year guidance, saying higher than expected health care costs for employees and increased e-commerce investment will weigh on results.
The sales number was better than I think people were expecting, and certainly better than we were expecting. And the costs are pretty much explicable by health care, by some additional e-commerce investment, and a little bit by the overall economy as well.
Walmart says despite continued economic challenges and a stretched consumer, the company is optimistic about the second half of the year, seeing bright spots in its smaller neighborhood stores, which the company plans to open more of by the end of this year. Walmart's online sales have also been a bright spot for the company, though the retailer scaled back sales growth expectations for the segment from 30% to 25% for the full year. And as the retail earnings parade continues, Kohl's reported earnings that beat expectations, but disappointed on same-store sales for the quarter, still hanging on to hope that fresh inventory for back to school will attract the ever-so-cautious consumer. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
And home foreclosures are on the rise again. Foreclosure activity across the U.S. up 2% in July, according to the housing firm RealtyTrack. That is the first increase in 4 months, but it is still way below the year-ago level.
At least mortgage rates ticked a bit lower last week. Freddie Mac reports that the average rate on a 30-year fixed loan was 4.12%. That's down from 4.14%.
Lending rates may move up and down, but the overall cost of home ownership is once again on the rise. And it's not just the purchase price or those mortgage rates. Something else could be pushing your monthly payment higher. Diana Olick explains.
If your home sits by the ocean, atop a fire-prone canyon, or even in a not-so-nice neighborhood, you probably know you're paying more for homeowners insurance. But something even closer to home may be driving your monthly payments higher: your personal credit score.
Insurance companies use credit scores because they found a statistical relationship between a consumer's credit score and the amount of claims and the severity of claims that they file.
Homeowners with poor credit pay 91% more for homeowners insurance than people with excellent credit. Homeowners with median credit pay 29% more than those with excellent credit. One of the biggest U.S. insurers, State Farm, confirmed they do factor FICO scores into their rates. A spokesperson there said there is an undeniable correlation between credit information and insurance risk. She could not say how much in dollar terms, though, a poor credit score could raise insurance costs.
Consumers need to understand that not every insurance company is going to factor credit the same way. So while one insurer may factor it very heavily, another may not.
And the rate changes vary state to state. Poor credit can boost your insurance payments by as much as 185% in Ohio. But 3 states, California, Massachusetts, and Maryland, prohibit insurers from using credit scores to determine rates. Credit scores and the added costs they can incur have been blamed for the still weak housing recovery. But some argue it's not credit holding housing back, it's cold, hard cash.
The reason why housing is so soft is because people just don't make enough money. This economic recovery has really benefited those with assets and the upper income level. Real median incomes have not recovered.
And until they do, credit will not recover fully either. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Diana Olick in Washington.
To read more about how your credit can affect the price of your homeowner's insurance, head to our website, nbr.com.
And just ahead, we'll tell you where one sector of the U.S. workforce, freelancers, are finding a healthy market for their skills and experience. That's coming up.
Many states aren't collecting as much tax revenue as they used to. A study from the Rockefeller Institute found that this spring, revenues in 36 out of 50 states fell, with an overall drop of nearly 1% each. That's the first quarterly drop in 4 years. Most of those second quarter losses were due to a sizable drop in personal income taxes.
How would you like flexible work hours and more control on who you work with? Well, millions of Americans are now doing just that and are part of the so-called freelance economy. It's big, growing, and popular with businesses trying to keep labor costs low. Julia Borston has more.
New technology platforms are connecting Americans with freelance work, fueling a growing freelance economy that accounts for $1.2 trillion of annual income. Freelance startups touch virtually every part of the economy. UberX and Lyft pay car owners to drive. UpCounsel gives access to top attorneys at lower rates than law firms. Rev is a freelance transcription and translation service. HomeJoy screens house cleaners, and anyone who can go to the grocery store can make extra money working for grocery service Instacart. Scripted screens and selects writers and connects them with writing assignments.
In a freelance capacity, oftentimes your time is spent trying to find jobs and less doing them. Scripted makes it easy to find a number of jobs in one spot, and so you can get back to actually writing.
Companies ranging from TripAdvisor to small businesses like law practices pay from $50 to $1,000 per blog post.
They can come to Scripted and have the workflow taken care of in one central place, track their work, provide request edits to the writer, and they're guaranteed the quality of the writing that they get back from us.
Consultancy MBO Partners predicts that this year 35% of non-farm and non-government workers will be either full or part-time freelance, projecting that number will go to 44% by the year 2020. The downside, freelance workers can suffer from the lack of benefits like health care, and national polls find freelancers are more likely to be depressed and anxious. But for people who need work and companies that need flexibility, freelancing can be a win-win.
Companies really have moved to what I'd like to call a project economy, where they are interested in giving work out not as necessarily a position, but as a project.
With that flexibility to expand as needed, companies can save money on overhead, while startups like Scripted help find workers here in the U.S. instead of outsourcing overseas. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Julia Borston in Los Angeles.
UPS and FedEx get the okay to expand in China, and that is where we begin tonight's market focus. The package delivery giants have received licenses that will let them extend their express package services to new cities in China. The two companies have been waiting for this permission since 2009. That's because postal laws in China restricted foreign firms from delivering packages from abroad. Shares of UPS up slightly to 96.07. FedEx also up just a little bit to 149.64. General Electric apparently looking to shed another one of its units. The company is considering once again the sale of its appliance division as part of its effort to streamline and focus on selling more of its more profitable industrial equipment. Electrolux is one of the parties interested in snatching up the unit. If it does, your GE washer will speak Swedish. Shares were up a fraction, $25.88, the close there. Securities and Exchange Commission reportedly looking into the joint bid by Valiant Pharmaceuticals and activist investor Bill Ackman for Allergan. According to those reports, regulators are investigating whether the offer to buy the Botox maker broke any insider trading laws. Shares of Allergan up slightly today to 155.60. Valiant jumped almost 2% to 111.04. And shares of Amgen hit a new record in today's session despite a batch of mixed news. The biotech company released disappointing results on its blood cancer treatment and recalled one of its drugs in Europe and the Middle East. But positive findings from another study are trumping that failure. And according to a new filing, hedge fund Third Point has taken a stake in Amgen. All that helped push shares up 3.5% to 131.86.
Meanwhile, Merck got the okay from the Food and Drug Administration for a new type of sleeping pill. The drug is designed to help people with insomnia stay asleep. Merck rose 1.5% to $58.78. So if you're a K-Cup lover, get ready to pay more. Keurig Green Mountain is raising prices by 9% for its portion packs of coffee. It blamed the price hike on expensive coffee bean prices, as well as rising costs for energy, packaging, and transportation. Shares rose slightly to $114.30. Coke and Monster Beverage are teaming up. Coke has taken a nearly 17% stake in Monster. That's worth more than $2 billion. The beverage giant will transfer its energy drink businesses to Monster as part of the deal, and Monster will give Coke its non-energy beverages. Shares of Monster Beverage shot up by as much as 26% in after-hours trading. During the regular session, the stock rose slightly to $71.65. And it turns out Burger King's Satis Fries didn't satisfy customers. After less than a year, the chain is scrapping the lower-calorie, lower-fat French fries at most restaurants. Shares were unchanged at $26.42.
The baseball world is waiting on its next commissioner. Major League owners will decide between Tom Werner, the owner of the Boston Red Sox, and Rob Manfred, who is the chief operating officer of MLB. Whoever gets the top job has challenges aplenty awaiting him in this $8 billion-ish business. Joining us now to talk about it is Bob Boland. He's professor of sports at New York University. Professor Boland, welcome. Good to have you with us. The votes are apparently going on today in Baltimore. What are the prime challenges that whoever wins this race face?
Really threefold. Baseball has grown in revenue under Bud Selig from approximately a $4 billion entity a year to almost a $9 billion entity this year, but its fans have gotten older and it faces increasing competition. So whoever's going to move the sport forward needs to move the sport forward effectively, get it more popular with younger people, and keep labor peace moving forward in that same direction so that it remains the national pastime.
Those are two really important issues. Who do you think would be the better person to accomplish that?
Well, if I were thinking about the revenue, the candidate, the 3 finalists are Tim Brosnan, the chief of business operations for Major League Baseball, might be the one who fits this prescription best. He has the lowest level of support, and in many cases, he and Werner are tied together as almost a package to stop the favorite, Rob Manfred, the labor lawyer.
Baseball's television ratings have not kept up with some of the other sports. In the middle of the World Cup was smacking baseball regularly. How big a challenge is that? How is the audience? How do you build back the audience?
Well, baseball has a unique problem because it has a lot of product out there. I mean, every team plays 162 games. There are 81 home games. All of them are on television now. So you've really kind of divided down the baseball product a lot. Where you probably would focus is bringing the postseason back in its greatest capacity and getting it on as much television, and at times fans can see it most effectively. And that may not be on television now. That may be digitally, too, because we're looking at a real big change in how we consume our sports products.
So look ahead, let's say 10 years from now, how is this whole business of baseball and the sport of watching baseball going to change under the leadership of one of these guys?
Well, that's a really great question. I don't think we can necessarily tell. Manfred's probably running on the past record of labor peace. Werner and or Brosnan are running to some degree on futurism, the idea that they understand the entertainment business, that they understand how to make this game relevant to the next generation. And with an All-Star game average age of fandom at 53, baseball is in a time that it needs to change and get younger.
So how do you get the demo to come down? How do you make the baseball stadiums the place where guys want to take girls out on dates if they can afford to go?
Well, that's the last one is probably make sure that there are prices that we can get to so that the sport doesn't go entirely corporate, play the games a little faster, and provide more entertainment in the stadium and the in-stadium experience, and keep your teams relevant and your games relevant. And that is a challenge all the way around.
Bob, thank you very much. Bob Bolin, New York University. And coming up, retiring baby boomers aren't sitting still. They're watching baseball. No, they're not. They're having fun and reshaping the economics of the travel industry. The final part of our series, Aging in America. Right after this.
All this week in our Aging in America series, we told you about the impact that an older workforce and rapidly growing number of retirees is having on companies, the healthcare system, and the overall economy. Well, in tonight's fourth and final segment, we take a look at the fun part of retirement and how many retirees are not exactly sitting still. Robert Frank has our story.
Some deals here.
Ralph and Karen Jones are retired, and they're enjoying every minute of it. The former New York teachers are like many boomers. They have more time on their hands, and they're taking to the road, skies, and seas. Boomers spend over $150 billion a year on travel, which they rank as their top leisure activity. They take an average of 4 trips a year, but they're not just looking for a lounge at the beach. Round-the-world cruises, safaris, and cultural tours of remote islands top the list for today's retirees who want adventure and enlightenment in their globetrotting.
What we've seen over the last 20 years is this huge shift in priorities from the accumulation of stuff to life experiences. And so it's quite frankly, a lot of people are focusing on life experiences, and travel as being one of the key, if not the key conduit for that.
And with prices coming down, you don't have to be rich. Ralph and Karen Jones have already spanned the globe.
Being able to set aside the money and saying, okay, we're going to go on a cruise, we're going to go on a motor coach tour, we're going to go see different places, and being able to really go about the world.
These are places that you've read about or places that you might have seen on TV, on the Travel Channel, and to actually have the opportunity to go there and experience that for yourself is really a nice luxury to have.
Adults over 50 now account for up to 80% of luxury travel spending in America, so hotels, cruise lines, airlines, and online travel sites are quickly adapting. Boomers like multi-generational travel with their kids and grandkids. They like to volunteer when they're traveling, and they love to bring home great stories.
When we're on these trips, we usually run into people who are in our age group, mostly are retired. You talk with some of them and they enjoy the traveling. A lot of times they'll talk to you about their friends who don't ever go anyplace and they're always sitting at home or they're still working. And we just sort of have a little fun and say, well, too bad for them.
With the rising middle class and affluent in emerging markets, the luxury travel business around the world is likely to keep on booming. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Robert Frank.
I'd like to go to any of those places.
I was going to ask you what's on the top of your list.
Well, you know, I went to Italy and I loved it. I'd go back there a lot.
You haven't been to China.
No, I have not.
You got to get that. Go ahead.
Not on leisure travel.
That's Nightly Business Report for us. I'm Susie Garrett, and we want to remind you that this is the time of year your public television station seeks your support.
And I'm Tyler Matheson. On behalf of your public TV station, thank you for your support. We'll hope to see you back here tomorrow night.
I'm Susie Garrett with a Nightly Business Report news brief. A new record on Wall Street today. Class A shares of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway topped $200,000 apiece, the costliest stock ever. Elsewhere on Wall Street, stocks ended higher despite a spike in jobless claims and lackluster earnings from Walmart. But soothing words from Vladimir Putin about ending the bloodshed in Ukraine seem to reassure investors. The Dow rose 61 points, the Nasdaq up about 19, and the S&P adding 8 points. Penney lost much less money than expected last quarter and even raised its sales forecast. General Electric is shopping around its home appliances unit. It could net $2 billion from the sale. And Coca-Cola is buying a nearly 17% stake in energy drink maker Monster Beverage. Be sure to tune into Nightly Business Report right here on your public television station.